everyone, and welcome again to our third installment of our Job Search July webinar series. We are honored and excited and delighted to welcome back um, to our webinars Hallie Crawford. My name is Terrence Hood, and I serve as Assistant Director for Alumni and Student Athletes in the TCU Career Center, also joined by my colleague Brooke Schumann, Associate Director in the TCU Alumni Association. And so we want to get right into our leveraging the hidden job market conversation today. But before we do, I just want to introduce Hallie, and then we'll get right into our topic. So our presenter, Hallie Crawford, has been a certified career coach and national certified career expert for 19 years. Her company, HallieCrawford.com, and team of coaches have helped thousands of people worldwide identify and transition into their dream career, effectively navigate their job search, and enhance their performance at work. Hallie is regularly featured as a career expert in the media, including U.S. News, Forbes.com, The Wall Street Journal, CNN, and Fox Business News. So we are excited and thrilled to have Hallie with us today. So I will turn it over to Hallie.
Thank you, Terrence and Brooke, for hosting me today. Greatly appreciate it, and I'm thrilled to be here with you all to share some additional job search tactics, techniques, tips, and secrets. And we were joking right before everyone was logging on that on the screen here is how my hair looks when I can go out and get it done. Due to COVID, it's looking like this with the humidity and everything else in Atlanta. So appreciate your patience with all of that, and I know we're all in the same boat, so you guys understand. So we are going to be talking about how to leverage the hidden job market. And one of the things that I wanted you all to know, kind of diving in first, is that sometimes I feel like people, when they come to us as career coaches, they feel like we have some magic website, behind the scenes that lists certain jobs that aren't published out there. And that is a little bit of what we're going to be talking about today, how to leverage the jobs and identify those positions that are not publicly listed or advertised. And give you specific 3 steps to discuss those things. But really quickly first, I did want to share with you all, so we've been coaching for over just about 19 years. It was our 19th year this year. I am a certified career coach based in Atlanta, Georgia. I went to Vanderbilt for my undergraduate degree and have my master's degree from the University of Illinois as well. And the tips that we are going to give you all today are the exact same things that we give and tell all of our clients in order to help them enhance their job search. And they will be relevant for what's going on in the world today. They are still relevant due to COVID, but as we go through these, the tips and advice, I'll share with you what some of the adjustments might be given that we're all working remotely, et cetera, et cetera. I did want to let you all know too that on our website we are, as much as we possibly can, providing additional and more advice than we normally do to help people with their job search and careers given what's going on due to COVID-19. That is going to be here on our career blog, but also all of you, please feel free to hook up with me or connect with me on LinkedIn so that you can follow us because we are providing a lot of additional information there as well. So here's our basic agenda. What we're going to be talking about today are 3 main things. Number 1, how to network more effectively, because networking is the key to leveraging the hidden job market and casting a wider net in terms of your job search. And we know that these days, obviously, networking looks completely different. We're not going to the Rotary Club or down the street to, our industry-specific association in person because of COVID. But we still want you to be networking as much as possible because this is still the best way to get a job. So we're going to be talking with you about how to do that online and virtually instead. We're going to discuss LinkedIn and how to leverage that more effectively because that really is your number 1 networking source, especially virtually. And LinkedIn, as you all can imagine, and I'm sure you've seen, it's even more important these days given everything that's going on because it's the virtual way to network with people all over the world. And then finally, we're going to be talking about informational interviews and how critical they are to tapping into the hidden job market because they are a very good tool to help you leverage networking even more effectively. Another way to get in front of people, if you will, get their time, make those connections, and expand your network. So let's dive in and talk about step number 1 here. And just by the way, I did want to mention briefly, if any of you all would like a copy of the PowerPoint, please feel free to email us at admin@halliecrawford.com. I will be sharing that email address as we kind of go today. But like we did last week, or maybe it was the week before, all of the days are blending together, right? That's what's happening for all of us. Like we did last time, if you would like a copy of the PowerPoint, happy to share that with you from today. So the reason why networking is so critical is because around 70% of the jobs that are landed or secured out there are secured through what is called the hidden job market. And these statistics, they kind of vary over time. It's between 60 to 70%, give or take. But the bottom line is, if the majority of you have been spending most of your time on online job boards, you know, clicking the button, submitting your resume, all of that, we want you to do that, but we don't want you to spend the majority of your time doing that, because that is going to be your lowest rate of return. Networking, connecting with recruiters, et cetera, and finding out, you know, who is hiring, but they just haven't gotten around to publishing the job yet, or who is about to, you know, their organization is about to grow, but again, they just haven't put the hiring process in place. This is the best way to find those jobs. So we know that, you know, leveraging and using the online job boards, it feels really good, because it's like, okay, I've submitted 10 job applications. You get that instant gratification. We get that. And networking does take longer. But please know that we want you to spend more of your time on the networking piece of your job search, because that is going to be the higher rate of return for you, okay? So let's take a look at the hidden job market and this next slide here for just a moment. So how we define, or what the hidden job market is, just so you know, is the hidden job market is unpublished jobs, those jobs that are not yet advertised out there or are not going to be advertised at all for whatever reason, that are then found through networking, through recruiters or placement agencies or headhunters, or they're found through LinkedIn searches by employers or recruiters looking and searching for candidates online and reaching out to them. So we'll get to this next part here on the slide in just a moment, but what we want you to know is that employers and recruiters actually do spend a lot of time trying to find qualified candidates for these jobs that they have not yet published or advertised out there, to reach out to those candidates kind of one by one and ask them if they're looking or if they're open to new opportunities. We have had a ton of clients get jobs this way, and this is one of the ways that we want to be talking about, or why we're going to be talking about LinkedIn in just a few minutes here as well, because people will find you on LinkedIn. And if you can imagine, if you're a hiring manager, for example, would you rather spend time like wading through hundreds and hundreds of emails and resumes, for example, or would you rather spend your time like kind of going out there and doing a quick search on LinkedIn, for example, and finding qualified candidates, reaching out to them and seeing if they would be interested? That's obviously a much more targeted search for them. So the ways that we want you to tap into the hidden job market through networking would be, by the way, just to look at this slide here really quickly, I wanted to give you kind of a quick overview about networking, is first, finding and identifying recruiters or hiring managers that you can connect with on LinkedIn. Okay, so doing a quick search on LinkedIn for recruiters in your area that work with your specific industry is a great way to get the ball rolling, to find people that know what jobs are published out there or that are working on active searches at the moment. So we would like you to search through LinkedIn or even Google recruiters in your area that you can submit your resume to them. And then even better, going that next step and see if you can identify where these recruiters are on LinkedIn and trying to connect with them as a possibility. Just send them a quick note, let them know you've gotten into their database and that you would love to connect with them if they are open to it. They may or may not be, but at least you've sent them that message and kind of gotten on their radar, okay? And then another way that you can also, after you've applied for a job, or if you're interested in doing so or learning more about the company or organization, you can also try to find and identify the hiring managers for local organizations that you're interested in. and trying to find them on LinkedIn, connecting with them that way, and seeing if they'd be willing to chat with you for a few minutes. Or if you've already applied for their job, following up to say, just wanted you to know I'm very enthusiastic about your position, love to be able to be brought in or, have a virtual interview. That would be fantastic. So one of the ways that you want to think about networking through LinkedIn specifically is identifying those recruiters or hiring managers. The other thing that we want you to do is to identify organizations where you would be interested in working. So it could be a list of like 10 to 20 organizations that you would like to target over time in your search, and follow them on LinkedIn and also follow them on Twitter. Because one of the other kind of newer things, if you will, that employers are doing is sometimes they will actually publish or tweet about their job opening either through LinkedIn or on Twitter. Now, the thing about Twitter, everyone, that we want you to know is we're not expecting you to be fully active on Twitter and you have to tweet all the time, because we understand that not everybody may know how to do that and what's appropriate to post. What we're talking about with Twitter here is simply set up a Twitter account, which is free, but follow the companies or organizations that you're interested in, because they will either post these jobs online on LinkedIn or they will tweet about them in some cases. Some organizations do that. So that's another great way to find out kind of, secondhand, if you will, or in a different way about possible openings. We want you to also subscribe to news alerts for organizations that you're interested in. This may be just simply following or staying on top of what's going on in your local city, state, municipality, et cetera, and staying on top of or subscribing to the local paper, for example. The Business Chronicle is what it's here in Atlanta, to find out so that you stay on top of, okay, what organizations are expanding or who is coming here to open an office, because that will help you get a sense of, ooh, I need to start networking people at that organization because they may be hiring sooner than later. The other way that we definitely want you to leverage networking, and Terrence and Brooke did not pay me to say this, we tell all of our clients this, is we do want you to leverage your alumni association and the LinkedIn group there, as well as any other ways that you can do that, because networking with fellow alumni, they're more likely to get back with you. That's a warmer lead for you to find someone at an organization that you'd like to get your foot in the door with, having a quick conversation with them, which we'll talk about more later as we go today. But those are warm leads we definitely want you to leverage. And then finally, because so many of us, the majority of us, are working from home, we want you to consider still reaching out to your industry-specific association as well to attend any virtual conference they may be having or virtual networking events. I know some of us may be like, gosh, I'm sick of doing that or whatever it is, but you've got to keep plugging with it. And we want you to attend those events, because a lot of organizations, they're figuring out how to handle this more effectively and how to handle the networking more effectively just doing so virtually, okay? So we definitely want you to still be involved and participate in your industry-specific association so that you can attend whatever events are coming up there for networking purposes.
Allie, we have a quick question about terminology that you're using, and I'm going to pause and address this. So we have a question about, when you say recruiters, are you referring to headhunters or HR recruiters within a company?
Great question. Thank you for saying that. Or is there a
difference? Or if you could answer that, that would, I think, would help a lot of people.
Sure. So I'm talking about both, but my first suggestion would be to find external recruiters, placement agencies, so to speak, headhunters that work within your industry, because that's going to help you kind of expand your cast your net a little bit wider with all of the different jobs that they may be working on at that time. So start with them first, okay, to get kind of in their system and in their database and get on their radar. And then after that, absolutely, if you are applying for a job at a specific organization, look for the hiring manager, but also do look for the recruiter within that organization as well. You just want to think about it kind of in a different way as a two-step process. Great question. Thank you for asking that, and Brooke for interjecting. All right, so when we're talking about networking in general, we also want you to literally go through your phone and refresh your network. So your phone and through LinkedIn, and make sure that you're connected with everyone that you know on LinkedIn. And we want you to start conducting, ideally, quick informational interviews, or even just, hey, do you have time for a quick coffee chat, or whatever it is appropriate based on how well you know this person. So for example, if you know someone really well, you don't have to formally say, I'd like to do an informational interview with you. You can say, could we catch up over coffee, virtual coffee in the next couple of weeks, okay? So we want you, ideally though, to start a list of, and this is networking with individuals, as it says on the slide here. We want you to create an Excel spreadsheet of the people that you know that are either really well connected or are in a job that you would enjoy or you want to target, or an organization that you want to target as well. And these could be, friends, family members, former colleagues, et cetera. But you also want to look at colleagues within your industry association that you've spoken to before at maybe an in-person event, but you haven't talked to them in a long time. You want to look at any members of boards that you serve on, if that's the case. University alumni, like we said before, leveraging that LinkedIn group. Look at coworkers in past or present jobs if that's appropriate for you. So start this list of people that you'd like to reconnect with, because you may either be really good at networking and you've stayed connected with people over time, or due to COVID, that may have slowed down for you, which we understand. So we want you to think about refreshing your network. And then after, and as you start working through the list of people that you do know or have some connection with, over time, you can start to branch out to those people that you'd like to know, people who are influencers in your industry, peers outside of your industry that may be relevant for you to speak with. And the other thing that I did want to just bring up here, and then we'll get to the next slide in just a moment, is one of the things that you can do if you're one of those people that feels like, gosh, my network isn't very expansive, I need to work on, gaining new connections, you can consider taking a class through LinkedIn Learning, which we'll talk about in a few minutes as well. Or one of the things you may want to do is consider like remote volunteering. There are volunteer opportunities out there where you can be part of a group to help another, nonprofit organization or whatever it is through remote volunteering. We had a client do this in Atlanta several years ago. She worked with a nonprofit in California. She was part of a great team to help them upgrade and update their website. The project lasted 3 months, but it was fantastic because not only did she gain some experience she could add to her resume, she also got some new networking connections, and she was able to get a great recommendation and testimonial from the organization itself, but also the team leader for that volunteer opportunity. Idealist.org is one place that you can look for these remote volunteer opportunities. So if you need to expand your network more, get to know more people in a different way, that's another thing that you can do too. When you're starting to do this networking, obviously you need to also work on updating your resume and your LinkedIn profile so that you have that ready to go to send out to people. We also want you to prepare your elevator speech, which could be a short kind of snippet from your summary statement at the top of your resume. And as part of this, as part of kind of your materials, if you will, and because this is what we're talking about right now, is kind of getting your ducks in a row as you're beginning your networking efforts, you want to make sure that you begin over time to slowly enhance your online engagement. And what we mean here by online engagement is specifically LinkedIn. That's what we want you to focus on, okay? So one of the things that we do want you to start doing in addition to updating your LinkedIn profile is to start getting a little bit more engaged on LinkedIn. So people are starting to see what you're posting. They see you in their feed. And this could be you're sharing or writing really quick articles or tips or thoughts on LinkedIn that people will start to see in their feed, oh, okay, they're sharing this inspirational quote or this article that's relevant to me, okay? You can share these things. You can comment on other people's posts, and that will make you more visible as well. You can share inspirational quotes. So just so you know, it doesn't always have to be this exceptionally pithy, perfect, wise thing that you're saying on LinkedIn every time. It could be that you're sharing a question for people to ponder or think about, or just something inspirational that's helping you get through your day with this remote working, et cetera, et cetera. And we also would like you to join and re-engage or participate in LinkedIn groups as well. So it's ideal to set a schedule, and this is all part of the hidden job market because it's helping you be more visible with your existing connections. And then, by the way, when a recruiter or employer comes across your LinkedIn profile, they will see that you're engaged on LinkedIn, that you care about your career progression, and that they'll kind of get, I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it, they'll get the sense of what your perspective is, and it's sharing your expertise and your brand on LinkedIn as well. So set a schedule for yourself and think about this in terms of you want to do these things on LinkedIn and participate actively in groups and share things in your feed at least once a week. It doesn't have to take that long. It could be about 20 minutes to a half hour, give or take. But add this to your weekly job search schedule as well, okay? And then finally, before we get to step number 2 here, tip number 2 for enhancing and updating your LinkedIn profile, we do want you to start over time setting up virtual coffee chats or virtual informational interviews like we were talking about earlier. And we would say definitely that video is preferable. If the person is amenable to it, it's preferable. Even if you're on video and they're not, that's okay. The point for video is that it establishes greater connection and a more solid connection with the other person. So if they don't want to do it for whatever reason, you want to leave it open to the other person and make it easy on them. So if they prefer just phone, that's fine, but always offer up and suggest video conferencing in some way, shape, or form. And by the way, we also want you to make it easy on them, like set up a free Zoom account for yourself. Use Google Video Chat, whatever it is, so that, again, you can make it easier on them to do this, okay? And then finally, before you start doing these, and thank you, Brooke, for launching this next poll, it's perfect timing, is you want to practice these virtual kind of interviews or coffee chats with a friend and family member to make sure your background is okay, that everything looks okay, and that you're coming across in a professional manner. That is critically important as well. So we are curious to see, and you guys are doing a great job with the polling here, how many people have done what we would consider a virtual interview. And this could be an actual formal interview for a job, or it could be an informational interview like we're talking about. Both, it kind of goes both ways is what we're talking about today. Okay, so we've got about 57% so far are saying no, they have not. So for those of you who have not done this, definitely we want you to practice, because I can't tell you how many times, a client will say, oh, my head was cut off and I didn't realize it. Like, definitely log in very early so you can make sure that everything looks the way you want it to. And practice, like we said, with a friend or family member. Some people will wave their hands around too much. Some people won't be sitting in the right, perspective with the camera. So we just want to make sure that you're coming across as professional and everything looks good there. So we'll share the results here for this next one, and we'll move to step number 2, which is LinkedIn, okay? So in terms of LinkedIn, we want you, oops, sorry guys, hold on one second. Let me move to the next slide here. Sometimes I click the wrong button. Let's talk about LinkedIn. So as we said a moment ago, one of the things as you're starting to do this networking, in order to tap into the hidden job market, we need your materials to be in a place that you feel confident, sense of pride, all of that. They're in the right spot for you. As we've already discussed, and I'm sure you already know, LinkedIn is a critical tool. It's a must for not just your professional development, but also for your job search. So really, honestly, everyone, LinkedIn is not optional anymore. Because if you look at the very bottom of this slide, employers are reporting, and this is climbing every day, as LinkedIn launches new features and all of that, as I'm sure you all have noticed, it changes all the time, that 80%, up to 80% of their recruiting is actually conducted through LinkedIn. It's becoming easier and easier for employers and headhunters and recruiters within and outside of organizations, because they do all use it, to find qualified candidates that they would like to reach out to and ask them, hey, are you looking? Are you in the job market? Can we bring you in for an interview? So the three essential things that we want you to pay attention to with LinkedIn and helping ensure that, number one, people find you, but number two, that when they do, they want to reach out to you for a prospective interview, for example, is making sure that your profile is up to date and in the right spot. That you are making new connections on a regular basis. And by the way, one of the things I did want to say really quickly is that you want to move towards having 500 connections plus, everyone, because employers and recruiters view that as kind of the bare minimum to have you look like you're well connected, you care about your professional development, et cetera, et cetera. So definitely move towards that 500 plus connections over time. What this means, as you can imagine, is that you can accept connections from people that you don't know, but as long as they look reputable and like someone that it would be worthwhile to be connected with, you do want to move up to that 500. So it's okay to reach out to people that you don't know and also accept connection requests from people that you don't know, again, as long as they look reputable. And then finally, as we said earlier, sharing this information. So writing articles, participating in groups, and sharing posts. So we are curious to launch this next poll, Brooke, if we could here for a second. How many people actively use LinkedIn? And what we mean by this for this poll is that you're leveraging it at least twice a week. And I'm not just saying like accepting or reaching out to people, but like you're really getting onto LinkedIn and leveraging it effectively by checking out your feed and reaching out to people or participating in groups. So we're curious about what this is, and everyone's participating, which is great. So far we're erring on the side of no, so it's good that we're talking about this because we do want you all to enhance this, especially given everything is so obviously remote these days as well. Lots of different ways to leverage LinkedIn. Okay, good. So I think we can end the polling, Brooke. It looks like, yep, perfect timing. So about 58% are saying no, they do not. So we definitely want you to get in the groove of this. And those of you who said yes, 42%, glad that you're doing it. Make sure, everyone, that it's at least twice a week. If you are responding to messages, you want to respond to LinkedIn messages, by the way, especially if you're in job search mode, within that 24-hour period. So when we're talking about twice a week, that means getting on and participating in groups and doing other things besides just reaching out to people and accepting invitations and responding to them. You don't want messages from other people, especially during these times with networking and active job search mode. You don't want them to lapse too long because time is of the essence there. We will go quickly through these next few slides here about LinkedIn because they are kind of covering some of the basics that a lot of you probably already know. We absolutely want you to have a photo, and it needs to be a professional photo, a straight-on headshot, dressed professionally, kind of clean background, et cetera, because people will be much more likely to contact you, connect, or be willing to connect with you as well if you have that photo. So it's definitely a must. The other thing we do want to just, and let me just move to the next slide here really quickly, we want you to also make sure that you have a friend or family member, somebody else, search for you when they're logged in to LinkedIn and also when they are not logged in to LinkedIn, everyone, because you want to make sure that your photo is showing up to the general public, not just to second connections or first connections or people that you're connected to at all. One of the things that I totally understand, because I have had trouble with this before and also our clients have trouble with, is they think that everything is public on LinkedIn in terms of their settings, and it's not always the case. You may have a setting that you need to adjust. So please do have at least a couple of people search for you in different ways on LinkedIn to make sure that everything that you want to be visible is actually visible in case you need to adjust any of your settings. Remember, this professional headshot is the first impression that someone has of you. So you really want to make sure that you've got all the criteria here set up for that photo. And just by the way, we don't feel that you have to have a professional photographer necessarily take your headshots. iPhones are great these days. If you can just try it out with someone, you know, in your household taking a picture of you, that could be an upgrade from what you have now. And a lot of times you can get away with that and it's just fine, okay? In terms of your LinkedIn profile, we want you to go through it comprehensively to make sure that your education is highlighted effectively, your experience is highlighted effectively, your strengths are in there as well, and make sure in that About section, but also in your past experience, all of these things, all of the pieces are filled out, or all of the sections on LinkedIn, but that you've also talked about, you know, what your personality type is, why you're interested in the jobs that you're going for, what would be fulfilling and rewarding for you if you had that job that you were applying for. You need to let people know why you're passionate about and interested in your industry as well. So you want to make sure that you've got all of those kind of check boxes in your mind, all of those pieces or elements are included somewhere in your profile, okay? And two of the other things on this next slide here that are really critically important we want you to pay attention to, in addition to your headshot, is we want you to make sure that your summary at the top is professional but also personal. We like people to have under your About section, which is what we're talking about right now, you can use first person in that, and we tend to err on the side of having our clients use first person so that you're speaking to your audience directly and they connect with you more. Reference your passions like we talked about just a moment ago. And one of the two things that are really important that I was saying earlier is we want you to make sure that you've got the relevant keywords in there that an employer or recruiter would look for. We want you to SEO your profile so that employers and recruiters will find you. So if you're starting to see certain keywords that, you know, in your kind of poll or in all of the job descriptions that you're looking at, if you will, you want to make sure that those keywords are in your profile. So if change management is a really kind of hot topic right now in your industry, you want to make sure it's referenced in your profile. If crisis management, especially given COVID, if that's something too that's important for your specific role or industry, you want to make sure that's in there as well. We do want you to get those recommendations. If you only have one, we want you to get, you know, at least 3 and have a total of 3 as a start. If you have none, that's one of the things you can start working on right now while you're networking with people as well, asking them for those recommendations. And then finally, the second really critical thing is we do want you to make sure, like we were saying earlier, that you've updated your settings on LinkedIn and that you've got this viewed by employers and recruiters box checked in your privacy settings, because this is one of the ways that they will actually find you. This is, again, the hidden job market, and the way that they will know automatically that you are open to new opportunities and in job search mode, okay? And then also in your skills section at the very bottom, everyone, you can control which skills are listed first. So there's a lot of skills that you can have on your profile, but only 3 show up right away in that quick view, if you will. And you can go in there and adjust the order of priority of those 3 skills. So we also want you to pay attention to your skills section on LinkedIn and make sure that the top 3 skills that are listed there first are the ones that you want employers and recruiters to see, that would be most appealing to them and important for the roles and jobs you're looking at, okay? And then finally, we do want you to consider putting a banner image behind your head that is branded something like this. We showed this in our last webinar a couple weeks ago. So we want you to have this in there as well, because this will help you absolutely stand out from the crowd instead of just having the blue kind of dots background that most people have, okay? We do have a LinkedIn expert that can help you with all of these things, SEOing your profile, creating that banner for you, which would be appropriate for your target audience. Feel free to reach out to us if you'd like more information on that. Happy to share that with you. And then finally, when you're leveraging LinkedIn, so let's talk about LinkedIn for networking purposes. If you want to contact a second or third connection, you want to, instead of just going directly to them, you want to first ask the connection that's in between the two of you to make an introduction. That is a warmer introduction. They'll be more likely to get back with you, et cetera. And remember too, most of you probably know this, that you always do want to include a note inside the invitation. Don't just have that standard template. Make sure that you let the person know, especially if they're a cold contact that you're reaching out to, why you're reaching out to them and why you would like to connect with them, okay? Don't just have the standard message, because then it looks like you didn't even take the time to bother with it. Keep up with your network over time so that you're appearing in their feed. So if some of you are wondering, how do I stay in touch with people in the right way? Use the LinkedIn notifications for any achievements, like a class that you just took or the volunteer opportunity that you just participated in. Use those LinkedIn notifications so that you stay in touch with people and in front of them in an easy way. Like we said earlier, check and respond to your messages daily, and then weekly, kind of as a catch-up, is there anybody else that I need to follow up with, maybe that I didn't hear back from? Create these new connections to expand your network and get up to that 500 number. Join groups and get those recommendations as well. One of the things that we did want to share here is you want to show that you give back too. So as part of asking for recommendations, make it a point to write some other people some recommendations as well, like 2 or 3 in the next few weeks. And we already talked about making networking a part of your weekly schedule. In terms of posting articles and information on LinkedIn, so that again, you're getting in front of people and sharing your expertise and insight and kind of what your perspective is as a professional, you do not have to write these really long articles. You can just share some thoughts or comments, okay, or creative ideas or things that have motivated you in the past week to kind of keep going while you're working from home. It could be problem-solving advice. If you're posting something, make sure that it is always professional and will be appropriate for the professional arena. Steer clear of possibly hot topics that people might be offended by. Just not a good idea to do that. You want to stick to strictly professional. But doing this and sharing your insight and information will help you stand out from the crowd, but it also builds credibility for you as a professional as well. And finally, before we get to our last tip here, we do want you to participate in LinkedIn groups and other groups, as we said as well. Provide valuable information. It's okay to ask questions in those groups, though, to get advice from people, too. And remember, this is a way to expand your network. So start to think about and notice those people in LinkedIn groups who participate really actively, and make it a point to reach out to them and perhaps connect with them and see if you can do an informational interview. And the last thing that we want you to also consider, and if we can launch this final poll here, that would be great. We're curious how many people have taken a course on LinkedIn. Another really good way to expand your network and kind of put your foot out there, or put yourself out there, I should say, and also enhance your skill set is to take a class through LinkedIn Learning or Coursera or edX. Those are some good kind of online classes, okay? But this is another way that you can expand your network. And by the way, if you have taken a class recently and you didn't use it to expand your network, you can go back to those people, try to reach out to them and connect. So far we've got 84% have not taken a class on LinkedIn Learning. Not that we're all sitting around bored these days, but if you do have some extra time on your hands, we would absolutely recommend keeping busy, but also enhancing your skill set, and for networking purposes, like we said, participating in LinkedIn Learning, because you can get those networking connections through your fellow course members, but also through whoever the instructor is as well, okay? So we highly recommend doing this for networking purposes, not just for learning. One of the things we did want to share today before we get to our third and final tip is if anyone feels like they need additional assistance with any of the advice that we've talked to you about today that is very specific advice for your unique situation, for example, happy to chat with you in a complimentary strategy session. Just feel free to email us at the same email, admin@halliecrawford.com. You'll be set up with one of our coaches. We can help answer additional questions, but also talk with you about our coaching services and how we can help you. So in our final piece of advice here, our final step, we do want you, in addition to catching up with people that you know and kind of coffee chats virtually, we want you to start conducting informational interviews with more people so that you can gather information about how to put your best foot forward in your search, what that particular organization is looking for in terms of your job application, to make a new connection in that industry or within that organization, and also find other people to network with. Ignore this poll here on this next slide, everyone. We're skipping that one. We wanted to focus on the first three that we already did. The other reason why informational interviews are very helpful, though, is that it also gives you a chance to kind of practice your interview skills a little bit, introducing yourself to a new person, asking questions, etc., with a little bit less pressure. The first thing that you want to do to set up these informational interviews is on this slide here. Find people that you want to connect with, that you want to gather information from. It could be LinkedIn connections, friends, family members, former coworkers. This, again, could be people that you've met, at holiday time, at events when we were allowed to, go out. So anyone is fair game, by the way, for an informational interview. If you feel like they would have good, solid information for you, and you have very good questions that you can ask them that they could give you advice on, as well as people that you could help in return. And the way that you can conduct informational interviews is via phone. It could be Skype, FaceTime, video conferencing, like we said earlier. It could be email, and if any of you are kind of still open up in your area and you can do a social distancing in-person informational interview, that would be absolutely fantastic if it's going to be possible. So you need to identify those connections first. When you set it up with them, you want to let them know very clearly you're looking for information. You are not looking for them to get you a job, whether it's through them or someone else. You want to send them a few questions in advance, 4 or 5 questions, so that they can prepare too. I really appreciate it when someone sends me their questions in advance because, number one, I know that I can prepare so that I can help them really effectively, and I also know that they're going to use my time wisely, and they're not going to, ask for 20 minutes but take an hour of my time. Let them know you intend to keep it brief, so that they realize that it's going to be short and sweet, you're going to be mindful of their time. But by the way, be prepared for additional questions. So you want to have 4 or 5 questions, sent in advance, but do have more prepared in case they are able and willing to give you more time. So you want to have about 10 questions, give or take, prepared just to be safe. The way that you can set up these informational interviews to leverage the hidden job market, because the more people that know that you are looking, the better off you're going to be, is you want to just send them a quick email or a message through LinkedIn introducing yourself, letting them know how you found them, it was the Alumni Association, etc. Let them know you're wanting an informational interview. You're not asking for a job. And give them times in that original email, by the way, that you are available because you want to make it easy on them. And again, if it's by phone or Zoom or whatever it is, make sure that you initiate that call and, again, make it easy on them. What we are finding, by the way, with informational interviews, because a lot of clients are asking us, gosh, due to COVID, I feel like I shouldn't bother people. No, it's okay to ask people for their time. Just be mindful that their response time might be slower. They may not be able to talk with you right away, but they might be able to in a couple of weeks. But don't stop your networking efforts just because of what's going on. We're all kind of getting in the groove to a certain extent, at least, of working from home. So in that case, or in that example, if you will, we're getting kind of used to dealing with these things. So it is okay to reach out to people and ask them for time. Just be mindful of, what may be going on for them, otherwise in their lives, and also be mindful that they might not get back to you right away. Here is an example of an email, kind of a template, if you will, that you all can use to make an introduction to someone for an informational interview. Again, please ask us for the PowerPoint if you would like this, but this is something, as you can see here, it's very short and sweet, quick introduction, letting them know clearly, though, you'd like a few minutes of their time, okay? And then on this next slide here, and you can also, by the way, Google informational interview questions, and you'll find a lot of really good ones, but you want to develop your questions in advance, and these are some really good examples. What is a typical day like? What are trends in the field? Are there certain things I should be putting in my LinkedIn or in my resume to help me stand out from the crowd for this industry or for your specific organization if you're applying there? And then at the very end of your time with them, whether it's 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half hour, you want to make sure that you ask them, how can I help you? Is there anyone else that you feel it would be good for me to connect with or get in touch with? And if so, would you mind sending an email introduction or a LinkedIn introduction? And then finally, can I stay in touch with you? What are your plans, for the holidays coming up? What are your plans for the rest of the summer holiday, et cetera, et cetera? Do a little bit of like personal connection with them as well, so that you're, expressing an interest in what's going on with them too. And then finally, and then we'll get to our Q&A here in our next couple of slides here, we want you to stay in touch with them. An immediate follow-up email or handwritten thank you note, and your resume if you all talked about exchanging that. You want to make sure, obviously, you've connected with them on LinkedIn. If they have sent you any referrals, make sure you follow up with them immediately and keep each person posted as you're networking with the next person. Keep each person along the way who's made those introductions for you on what's going on. Send them an appropriate card or note or thank you, whatever it is, and check in with them every 2 to 3 months, okay, depending on what you discuss with them. The way to stay in touch with people is to send them an article that you feel would be helpful and useful to them. Update them on your job search. If you've updated your resume, say I've updated my resume, do you mind if I send it along to you? And as we said earlier, make sure that you update them on any connections kind of along the way. We do have a free job search worksheet that we're happy to share with you all. This was referenced in our last webinar as well. So if you already have that, this is the same one for those new people. But if you leverage this job search worksheet, one of the reasons why it's very helpful specifically for the hidden job market is it's going to help you keep track of the people that you've spoken to so that it's easier for you to add those additional connections kind of to your repertoire and your follow-up schedule over time, okay? One of the things that I wanted to share with you all before we get to action items and Q&A is I realize that in a lot of cases for people, reaching out to someone new or cold feels like a risk and like something that you may not be as comfortable doing. We totally get that. And this is the quote that I always share with our clients, that the greatest risk in life is not taking one. Take baby steps with this. Conduct 1 or 2 informational interviews with someone that you know really well to kind of get in the groove of it and practice. You'll feel better at that point. And I promise you, once you have one of these more formal informational interviews or networking talks with someone, the rest will be so much easier after that. You just got to get that ball rolling. So get out your pen and paper, if you would, everyone, and identify 2 action steps that you will take in the next couple of weeks here. It could be a strategy session with us, like we said. It could be updating your LinkedIn profile. And let's go ahead and get to Q&A here. I know I've said a lot, and I share a lot of information with all of you, so happy to answer any questions as well. And please know, too, if you have additional questions that we don't get to today, feel free to email us at admin@halleacrawford.com. We would be happy to answer those over time for you, too. Okay, Terrence and Brooke, I will be quiet and go ahead and answer some things.
Well, we've got questions coming in, so let's start off with the first one. Can you elaborate a little bit more about what is included in an elevator speech?
Yes, great question. So your elevator speech should be like 1 or 2 sentences. It's supposed to be like, 30 seconds at the max. It's supposed to be real short. And what you need to include is who you are. So for example, I would say I'm a certified career coach, and then you want to say what you do and what value or results you bring to your target audience. So what mine is, just for example, is I'm a certified career coach, and I help people find jobs that make them want to jump out of bed to go to work in the morning. So I'm speaking about the results. So I'm helping people find a job that makes them feel this way, okay? So you want to say I'm an environmental engineer, for example, that help, and I help organizations or companies navigate the environmental compliance minefields that is so difficult for them. I help them navigate that and ensure that their projects are on time and under budget. Again, focusing on results. That's a great question.
Okay. Next, we have the question, I think you mentioned an SEO. Can you tell us what that is?
Yeah, so sorry, sometimes I use this lingo and I go so quickly I forget to explain. So SEO is basically search engine optimization. So the reason why you want to SEO, like companies do that with their websites, so that if someone types into Google or Bing or whatever, a certain set of keywords, that your website will come up. That's the purpose of SEO. And with LinkedIn, when an employer or recruiter is searching for someone, if you're an interior architect, for example, some of your keywords that would mean they're search engine optimized, or that your profile was, might be like design and interior architecture, Atlanta, for example, what your location is, and any other like specific keywords that would be specific for your industry, like AutoCAD would be the software that you use. So SEO is basically putting keywords in there that someone might search on to find you. Good question.
Great. Okay, next we have, what is the best approach to reaching out to a recruiter or someone you've previously reached out to that did not initially respond?
Yeah, I know, right? We try to figure out how much of a pest can I be without going into the stalker mode. So what I would do is, to me, like about three reach outs. So one initial connection and 2 follow-ups, I think is reasonable and not stalkery. So what I would do is give them a little bit of time and space and reach out to them again, but maybe do it a different way. So for example, see if you can find their email address and use that on their LinkedIn profile. If they put it on their LinkedIn profile, it's public knowledge. So it would be okay to send them a quick email. And if there's a way to grab their attention, for example, again, being reasonable and professional, if you were referred to them by someone, you want to put that referrals or that information in the subject line of the note or email to encourage them to open it, okay? And then with the third follow-up, you may go back to LinkedIn or whatever it is, but try different methods of follow-up and also different subject lines that you think they might be more likely to open up. But don't hesitate to follow up with them. It's on them. If they don't want to respond, you know, they don't have to. But also, if you can get a connection, introduction to them in some way, obviously that would be good too. Great question.
Great. Okay, here's the next one for you, Hallie. Is it better to apply for a job through LinkedIn or on the company's career job board, their HR website? Which one is better?
Yeah, so we like people to apply through LinkedIn because then they'll see your LinkedIn profile right away. And Terrence and Brooke, if you have some other thought, you know, because we hear conflicting advice from different sources, but we prefer LinkedIn because then they'll see that right away, and you will come in kind of a little bit higher at the top of the pile, we believe too, because employers and recruiters are leveraging LinkedIn, like we said, to find those candidates. So LinkedIn, short answer.
All right, I think you said the email address again. I will also put it in the chat feature, but someone wanted the slides for the presentation. So Hallie, if you want to put yours, the admin in the chat
at the bottom.
feature. Okay, it is great. And then someone also asked, this is a question for me. They were not able to attend our first session and they wanted to watch the recording for that. It's a great question. We did 3 webinars this month, all for Job Search July. They will all be posted under the Resources tab on Horned Frogs Connect, which is our alumni networking site, and I will put that link up here. We are getting those edited and they should be up by Monday at the very latest. So all 3 sessions will be there, both of Hallie's sessions and some other resources that Terrence and I have for you, as well as our session last week about using the job search functions on Handshake and Horned Frogs Connect.
Oh yeah, and that's, by the way, everyone, that ties perfectly into what we're talking about today. That again is kind of the hidden job market because those jobs may not be publicly advertised, but they're advertised just for alum. So that's another way to do it. So if you're looking for kind of the secrets, that's part of what we're talking about today, is those places that employers are trying to find a certain profile of person, for example. So that was perfect, Brooke. Yeah,
on Horned Frogs Connect, we are tying both Handshake, which is Frog Jobs, but this is the new Frog Jobs alumni. This is not the one of 20 years ago or even, quite frankly, 2 years ago. It's brand new and it's just so much more sophisticated and just has thousands upon jobs. And it links with Horned Frogs Connect, but it also allows alumni to post a job organically right there onto the site. And they're posting next level jobs. This is not just your entry level positions. I've seen recruiters on there, looking for executive directors of firms, finance positions, you know, vice president positions. So they're looking for that next level position. So it's not, you know, just what you think of entry level positions or maybe starting out. I know some of us are experiencing layoffs or furloughs just with everything going on in our economy right now. And so it's a hidden resource we definitely want you to check out. Okay, back to our questions, because I know Terrence and I could talk for days on that.
Right.
Tips or advice to adjust the LinkedIn profile. I think we kind of talked about that. Hang on.
Yeah, and if it's more general, I would, like I said, focus on the headshot, the about section first, and then the skills at the bottom. Those are the three things that I would really focus on first.
Yeah, and it's actually, they want more tips about adjusting your LinkedIn profile or resume if you're wanting to change industries. I'm sorry, I didn't.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so great. No worries. I know it's hard. So what you would do is you want to make sure that in your profile, in the about section and in your experience section, I don't want to say genericize it because we don't want it to be too generic, but that's kind of the mindset that you want to have, is how do I talk about my strengths and skills and experience, but not from a niche way with my particular industry. Like, hey, I did project management, and sure, it happened to be over here, but I can do it over here. I'm a great project manager, for example. So you want to think about how they transfer over and take away some of those, any lingo or language that is specifically used for the old industry that wouldn't be relevant for the new one too. So that's the way to think about that.
All right, well, one more question here for you, Hallie, before we sign off.
Sure.
Can you talk to us about setting your LinkedIn profile to be viewable by different audiences? Is that a feature that's available now?
What you want to do is you want to go into your settings and look at, it should say like it's a privacy header, and that's where you can view your settings and what's going to be public versus not. So honestly, for everyone, go into your settings and take a few extra minutes to actually look through all of those pieces, because what we would prefer is that everyone can view it, that everything is as public as possible, because when you're in job search mode, you want everybody to be able to see it and see everything easily. So it should be viewed by all audiences is the bottom line.
Very good. I think we've addressed all of the questions. I did want to share my screen real quick
I'll stop share, Brooke, just in
you
case.
Can stop sharing, Hallie. That would be
great.
great.
Just did.
There we go. Yeah. On LinkedIn, since we have spent quite a bit of time discussing this today, we do have a TCU alumni group. You can see that we have nearly 9,000 members in this group. I think this is one of the tricky things about groups. There are some other unofficial TCU alumni groups. I don't think those are necessarily bad, but this is the official TCU Alumni Association group. We get requests all the time. Look for the TCU Alumni Association logo there, and then I'll put this link in the chat feature, and then also I'll put the link to Horned Frogs Connect that links also to Handshake, the new frog jobs, as another resource for everyone today.
Okay, good.
Yay. I think that wraps us up for today. Let me check and see if there's any other. Oh, when LinkedIn is public, are all of your contacts public too? Good question.
I believe that they are, but it's like it's really hard for someone to like look through it with a fine-tooth comb. So I believe that they are, and as far as I know right now, there's no way to have those be hidden. For most people, though, that's not a big deal, but do keep it in mind just in case it is for you. Usually they are public, yes.
Okay. Hallie, one more question. Sorry, I've seen a lot of people on LinkedIn, and maybe this is an old practice. They would list their name as Hallie C instead of Hallie Crawford. Any advice on that?
Put your full name. You need to have your full name so they know who you're talking to, and it's more professional as well.
Okay, good. Oh, this is a good one. I promise, Hallie. We'll cut it off here because I know everybody's got places to be maybe, or maybe they just walk to the kitchen for lunch. But can you change privacy settings to make sure that our current employer cannot see that we're looking for a job?
No, but unless they are searching for people and search for you specifically, and then your name comes up in a search, then they're not going to know that you've checked that box. So for the most part, you'll be fine.
Great. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you.
today.
Have a great day, everybody. Thank you.
So much.
We'll leave the call open for just one more moment as I put a few more links out here for Horn Frogs
Okay,
Connect
good.
and then also the LinkedIn group.
Okay. And I'm going to sign off because I do have a call. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks,
Really
Holly.
appreciate it.
Thank you, Hallie. Appreciate it.
Okay, bye, guys.
Bye. Here is our LinkedIn group. Put both of us out there.
All righty.
Right. And as I mentioned earlier, we will be posting all of the presentations on Horn Frogs Connect under the Resources tab. You should hope to see those by next week, early next week. Great. Well, thanks, everyone. Bye, Terrence.
All right. Go Frogs.
Go Frogs.